The entire webinar is divided into two parts. One is about the financial aspect. I will talk about what we planned to do when we started all this, what we actually achieved, and what we plan to do in the near future, my standard part. Plus, the second part is about the technical implementation of the project, specifically what we have done, what the company actually represents today, which agreements have been made with whom, what the team is like, what developments have been made, what experiments have been conducted, and what we plan to do in the coming year. And about 3 years ago, we started exploring the topic of airships. There were different teams, and we delved deeper and deeper into the subject. Then, in the summer, we became more actively involved in it. So I made a decision. On July 27th, 2024, I decided to create a chat in Telegram where I gathered my friends, colleagues, like-minded people, and simply announced, let's take a look. Let's gather. Let's bring together the first 100 people and start moving forward little by little. I just publicly announced it. Accordingly, literally 2 weeks later, we decided to hold the first, let's say, presentation where we informed that we were preparing this project. I think this conference indeed actually turned into a conference, even though we just wanted to make a small online announcement with you. But in the end, developers, potential partners, product creation partners, a large number of investors, new people, and our current people, and esteemed colleagues all came. Accordingly, in essence, we essentially regard this as a kind of start around the 8th, August 8th, when we said that we were all beginning to prepare for the project's launch. So, what do we have? It was announced at the beginning that we are setting the main goal for the pre-launch stage at $2.5 million. A completely new project from the very beginning. We didn't meticulously plan out the timeline in advance, but as it turns out, it just so happened today that we scheduled a webinar just a few days before this, and the amount was gathered today, literally just a few hours ago. And our online seminar is about the fact that we are essentially finishing up with the pre-launch stage. Today we are announcing that we are starting this exciting project. That's it. Indeed, the date is set for October 4th, which is what we currently have in terms of funds. So, in fact, the company has received exactly $2.5 million. This took approximately 6 months, counting from August 8th. In terms of installments, this amounts to about $14 million, which is approximately the total amount of installments we sold. About 10% of this amount has already been canceled. This is standard practice for installments. Accordingly, this is the result that we, together with you and the Solar Group community, have created. For us, this is incredible confirmation that everything I say is working out. We are heading in the right direction, speaking in terms of the number of investors. As of today, just before the start, I checked, we have 4,492 actual investors in this project in the first 6 months, so to speak, of operation. Again, I simply want to draw your attention to something. Indeed, imagine that at that stage, besides the same conference and our sort of vision of where we truly intend to go, we had absolutely nothing. There was a dedicated team that said we would take this on, and there were those who saw what we were doing, how we have been working consistently for almost 8 incredible years, or even more in some remarkable cases, over the years. Accordingly, the people who have truly joined us now are, in the truest sense, taking us at our word, and genuinely during the most risky time. We mentioned that for such people, we have the best entry conditions, and they will last literally for another 2 weeks, until the 4th, until March 4th. In the next stage, the first stage, We will change the conditions by half, meaning we will offer half the discount. You will now see when Fedor explains in great detail what the company physically represents at this current point in time. This is the change in state that allows us to sell the same thing in the market and effectively, but at a higher price. So, this is what has actually happened. With what purpose are we starting the first stage, and how will we proceed further? Firstly, we are moving to what is like the second stage, but in essence, it is the first stage. All right, the company launch begins. The first goal will also be $2.5 to $5 million, because I think that the pre-launch itself, but still the amount will increase. The goal of the first stage is $2.5 to $5 million. Then we plan to change 2 to 3 stages per year, meaning each stage will last about 4 to 6 months. It will be tied to the amount, the timeline, and what we plan to accomplish, as we mentioned. We will write more about this in detail. However, the stages will still be flexible. We reserve the right to ensure you don't have any disappointments. So, we are saying up front that we set an approximate range, timeline, and amount of what is done, and we combine them and move forward accordingly. In the first stage, we will create a somewhat more distinctive and unique legal system with international participation and collaboration, because the pre-launch phase showed us that quite large partners who want to act as both clients and investors for Aeronova need a certain entry model as well, such as. Fyodor has undoubtedly mentioned this more than once in webinars, that the crowdfunding here might be somewhat short. This is starting to become apparent, but we must be prepared for it as well. You should know that legally we will become an international company.
In fact, we have approximately 750 square meters of fully equipped office space, where we have 35 highly dedicated employees exclusively with engineering and technical qualifications working on the project. They all have equipped workspaces, including computer stations, server stations, and laboratories. We will be hiring more engineers, designers, and analysts soon enough. In fact, there are also 600 square meters of production space. We have already purchased additional equipment for it thanks to the investments. We bought a milling machine, a lathe, and a turning milling machine with an additional 5th axis. They are fully paid for and currently on their way to us in Russia. 35 people, a well-equipped office, a laboratory, and 600 square meters of production space. We even had representatives from the Moscow Aviation Institute and the Experimental Student Design Bureau indeed actually speak at that mini conference, which wasn't supposed to be a conference, on August 8. At the moment, this team is actively engaged. Well, they are our, how should I say, partners, and they are working on designing the gondola for the Nova 2 airship, which is a 2,000 cubic meter airship. We are currently in the stage of the preliminary project. In general, as planned, everything is connected and working. They even sent us the first designs of these gondolas. It's not like we told them, guys, do it. They are doing it naturally. We had worked out these external appearances, calculated all the mass weight summaries, all the energy of the airship was calculated, even all the aerodynamics were figured out, and in general, we provided a whole lot of initial data to this design bureau of mine, and together with them, we formed the technical specifications for development. Recently, during the sketch project, we were currently presented the first designs. So, this is about the Nova 2 airship. It is considered that Aeronova is now in development, and from a design perspective, it is already fully developed. The Nova 01 airship, which is 130 cubic meters, is currently in the active phase and is already in the final stage of production. All the components that could be purchased have been acquired. Everything that needed to be constructed has been constructed. Everything from which what was constructed will be produced has been purchased. And earlier I mentioned that we would launch it and lift it into the air by the end of February. These deadlines are being pushed back slightly, but not for long. By mid-March, we should definitely be flying. We would like to do it at the beginning of March, and we will try. Besides MAI, which I already mentioned, by the way, MAI will not only provide us with this sketch, or rather the design, but also several other designs, and it's quite possible that we might even be able to make them all public. The MAI experimental design team is working on the gondola. Naturally, the Aeronova staff themselves, 34 engineers, are working on the rest of the apparatus. This includes the airship's body, the soft body of the airship, its design, the design of all air gas systems, the tail assembly, and the control schemes. The power plant is entirely our responsibility, as well as the swivel transmission and the design of the propellers. The propellers will be in a ring. We even had to take on the design of the propellers ourselves. It's all so interesting, one thing leads to another. If we start with, for example, what propellers are available on the market, the propellers debut for us, what kind of airship we will end up with, and what kind of engine needs to be installed. This consensus led to the conclusion that it's easier to design the propeller in the end. And all these processes are underway, and departments have been formed. And what has really been accomplished over these 6 months is the establishment of working communications among 35 people, all of whom understand what kind of device we are making. When they need to produce their part, with complete information exchange between them, and they work in a unified information environment. We take into account all documents, everything is structured, there are internal regulations, access rights are configured, chats are created, subchats are created, and then we gather as a whole team. In other words, schedules. We have large setup meetings held on Mondays. On Tuesdays, it's within the engineering center, between me and the chief designers. On Wednesdays, they gather their department heads, and Thursday and Friday are intensive work days. It turns out that this was indeed most likely one of the most truly fundamental things done. The team started buzzing, and now the result will be a flying device. As for the partners, you've already seen that we had a flight. We had a flight into the stratosphere with partners like Denis Efremov from Stratonautics, and partners like Arkady from Bauman Moscow State Technical University. Arkady is the executive director of the Student Engineering Center for Aeronautics at Bauman. During this time, over the course of 6 months, we flew into the stratosphere several times. We had a couple of peak launches. This is when we, together with Denis Efremov, launched, so to speak, payloads, future payloads. In fact, everyone is already aware. I've mentioned it 20 times, but I'll remind you once more. These are the payloads that are ultimately supposed to fly in the polar vortex and, in general, establish radio communication. There were a couple of peak launches where we tested this. Simultaneously, together with Arkady, we were developing the technology for producing our own envelopes for long drifting devices. We set up the production process, purchased the equipment, found the raw materials, and eventually produced the first Russian small batch stratospheric envelopes. We tested them with 2 full factory launches, which we partially broadcast, as you saw. The first factory launch didn't go well, it took off, but we brought it down in a controlled manner. The second one went according to plan, and soon there will be a third, final one, which we plan to release for long-term flight. Yes, so expect the launch in the first days of March. We are also eagerly anticipating it, the Dolgopredny Design Bureau of Automation. In general, historically speaking, this is the Soviet airship construction that continues to remain from those times when Nobel helped build, and they were building airships, and now they are engaged in government contracts for aerostat systems. We signed a comprehensive and large agreement on collaborative joint activities with them, and we help them, and they help us. We are currently testing a variety of fabrics with them, and over this time, we have collected a lot of fabrics available on the market, including Russian, Chinese, Taiwanese, Korean, and even American ones. And all of them supposedly come with certificates and specifications, but we still need to recheck things like gas permeability, tensile strength, weldability, and a bunch of other factors. And there is a full-fledged laboratory that operates according to GOST and all the guidelines, and it is the only one here at DKBA. DKBA is currently helping us, or rather has already helped us, choose the main fabric for the Nova 01 airship. And just recently they issued a conclusion, and we immediately began producing the Nova 01 envelope. Everything came together. We have the fabric, and now for Nova 02, the purchase of specific fabric is being planned. So here's another partner, DKBA Rostek, and some other guys just sent you a memorandum of understanding. But these are already his customers, and they are from another country, Kazakhstan. It's a transportation company, and we don't plan to disclose them yet, but in general, they plan to expand their activities with airships very well and broadly. They are sending their freight cargo flows in millions of tons, specifying where to and from, and in general, we are jointly developing a line of cargo unmanned airships with them, determining what kind of economics would suit them to start using them, to put it briefly, in total. And we are looking at whether it is even possible to create such a thing. Impossible. Possible. And when will it be created? There are several demands for Nova 0.1, ranging from advertising to serious monitoring. Yes, there are several, but I don't want to disclose them, and I don't want to sign anything with anyone until it has specifically flown and completed its mission. This dirigible theme was somewhat present in the market, so to speak, when you work a lot and end up burned out. Many sold dirigibles to various people, they provided them, and the market got a bit burned out. Well, you know, I don't want to stand in that same line and start talking about something that doesn't exist. There it is, you see, it's flying, it's working. That's it, basically. It's a completely different position. It's on Nova 0.1, it's on Nova 2, it's also on Nova 8, it's on Nova 35, and it's on Nova 60. Not just one or two, and each needs its own. This is also a big thing, and Viktor Vasilievich Morozov is doing it for us. He collects the client's wish lists, so to speak, then brings them to the engineering center and says, the clients want it like this. The engineering center says, well, of course, it's not a flying saucer, but we'll try. In general, Viktor Vasilievich paves the way and negotiates between what is wanted and what we can do. Roscosmos recently invited us and said they really want to participate in all stratospheric research, that is, in experiments. We are currently conducting experiments. In fact, we are working on developing technologies. They want to participate with their payloads and see great potential in this work. And similarly, they have a good plan for Nova 01, and they even have a plan for Nova 02. It's all related to monitoring and radio transmissions for the NPO Roscosmos. It's very interesting, indeed. We're trying to find some kind of eco-friendly, harmonious interaction with them. I think it's quite a breakthrough news, guys, that they are reaching out to us.
The project initially begins. The first stage starts with having a well-coordinated and carefully selected team. There are various areas where this team actually conducts its essential activities. There are crucial production facilities with equipment, which were also purchased with the money already received from investors in the project. There is a large number of partners with whom cooperation is ongoing, quite well-known names in Russia, leaders in their fields, and these are potential clients. Well, not even potential. These are people who say, we will buy it, just provide the device. I think this is a starting position that not everyone believed would happen. But at the same time, we are just beginning. I see that we are developing quickly, but at the same time, there are occasional news reports that airships have been launched over there, and over there as well. So, we still need to move faster and faster. Fedya, tell us, in 2025, what are our goals and objectives? Are we falling behind other companies?
Well, if we consider the Russians saying that we take a long time to harness, but then travel fast, indeed, we've been harnessing for the last 50 to 60 years, so now we've taken off compared to the others. Because both Brin, Airlander, and the Chinese, they've all been working on their projects for decades. In half a year, we made a small device, which you will see now, and during this year, 2025, we will make Nova 2. We will probably lift it into the air in 2025 to 26, maybe January, February, we'll see, maybe even in December, but that's not certain. We would like to launch it far within a year, as we promised. We also started the project, and around September, October, we moved into the office, and we aim to launch it within a year. Most likely, in September, October, we will show a fully inflated, so to speak, not completed, but inflated shell, a standalone gondola that is being assembled, where you can already sit, and everything will most likely be operational. But as for actually getting it airborne this year, at least, the Moscow Aviation Institute doesn't believe it at all. They say, you gave us the task to develop, produce, and so on within a year. They say we would need 2 years. He says, no, 1 year. Well, in general, we agreed with them that we would take on the main production ourselves. They firmly believe that we can do all this quickly. We will most likely make several 30 cubic meter drones, several modifications, let them fly, and we will probably make them for customers, for exhibitions, for some kind of show, and for advertising. If the device flies, we might even increase it slightly, a little, we'll see. Our capabilities for producing airships are increasing every month, every quarter. And the more capabilities we acquire, the means of production, the faster, naturally, we will be able to mass produce and modify these airships. By summer, it is planned, and it would be good if we have already finalized the land plot. We have already very clearly understood that the land plot should indeed face towards the airfield of some airport or ideally be part of an airport. Naturally, on this land plot, we need to place a temporary structure for now. The project itself involves the construction of a large hangar, but for now, it would be good to set up a temporary structure for the assembly and testing of the Nova 01 130 cubic models. For now, we have a place to assemble and test the first ones. In the future, it would be nice to use this same facility for welding and testing the Nova 2 shells. We have more or less understood what it is. It's a quickly assembled pneumatic structure. Although it's called temporary, in reality, it has a lifespan of 5 to 10 years. A slab is poured for it, and this inflatable hangar is easily set up there, equipped with heat, water, and electricity, making it quite cheap, quick, and functional. In it, we've almost completed the first modification of the new T30 version 0.1. We will be able to stamp out several more modifications there and also independently weld the shell of the Nova 2. In the summer, a cutting and welding shop will appear along with a small testing base, which will initially be used for testing the 130 and later for the pneumatic testing of the Nova 2 hull. And most importantly, as I always say, indeed, all airships are just balloons with propellers if the control system doesn't manage the balloon. And we are doing very well. We have made significant progress in creating the control system as an onboard system. We don't need to purchase it from anywhere, and no one is developing it for us. We have developed it completely from scratch ourselves, as well as the ground-based dispatch and control complex for a single device and for a swarm of devices with all interfaces. Only a handful of companies in the world can indeed boast of having such an incredibly unique program, and they sell it at an extremely high price, and we would never be given it because we are under sanctions. Well, our country specifically is. And the fact that we were able to accomplish such a massive, titanic task in 6 months says a lot. About the selected team, about all the internal interactions and dynamics. The Bauman Institute is helping us develop the management system. The Lomonosov Moscow State University is helping us develop the system. And the Massachusetts Institute of Technology is helping us develop the management system and dynamics. Yes, almost officially. What's most amusing is that in this direction, all the IT specialists are working just at Melad's request. They are simply helping the project. They said, wow, a dirigible, of course, we'll do it. We are currently monitoring and observing this process, and there are about 8 directions in the laboratory, and the power unit, which will be tested on the Nova 8, is already in full operation. There are also many industrial partners emerging there. They have already appeared and are all actively working. But we haven't told you yet that this is a power unit. We're keeping it a secret until it starts working, although during the webinar with Arkady, this little unit peeked out a bit because of Arkady. So you can rewatch the webinar about the stratosphere and try to guess what it will be. This year, yes, we promise to reveal it. And this year, the unit itself is 300 kilowatts. It runs on fuel, and its efficiency is similar to that of a diesel internal combustion engine, maybe even higher and more efficient. This year, it will be approximately 300 kilowatts nominally, or so 400 in short term, quite prolonged modes, and this unit will be on the stand and tested, most likely by mid-autumn, hopefully earlier, but the design phase is already completed, and the production phase has begun as originally planned. Regarding the stratosphere, our plans for the stratosphere include launching this orbital constellation, and these plans have not gone anywhere. Right now, we are conducting the final launch, and based on this completed launch, we will begin producing a series of these devices. Also, in that webinar, take a look at it. I talked about, together with Arkasha, we, so to speak, planned online the development specifically in terms of payload capacities and the technologies used. And by summer, yes, there should be a qualitative leap. This leap is also expected from us, and the audience is anticipating it as well. What we are doing now is already very interesting to them, but what is even more interesting is what we will do. And we will do it. Regarding what will happen in the laboratory over the year, there will be many various small technological moments. For instance, when a large shell is in the hangar, you need to find a helium leak, hypothetically. But it's never an obvious hole from which it is siphoning. It could be a small defect in the weld seam. And how to find it? There are a number of proposals, and they are already being put into action. Onboard helium purification systems are also a project of the laboratory, and everything will be completed this year as well. Previously, due to proportional pressure, air would still get into the envelope, and helium would escape from it. The purity of helium in a dirigible can significantly decrease over a year, noticeably by 5%, 10%, depending on the material. We'll look at our own and work on reducing this, but in general, the fact that helium in the envelope gets contaminated is a given. If it carries a ton and suddenly can lift 100 kilograms less, it's not really a big deal. If it carries 10 tons and can lift a ton less, that's already concerning. All of this helium needs to be unloaded, purified, and reloaded. It's quite a lengthy process. There are already several concepts, and everything is being purchased and produced. Heating is an ancient method, but ionizing helium is where all this is headed. It's much easier to regulate, and you can instantly change buoyancy. It's a very experimental direction, but this year the guys promised to deliver some results. And yes, each direction should become profitable. Rustlin with production will achieve this, and I think you've already been able to understand and appreciate that. There are helicopters designed. Some units are available, flying, and stationed in Zhukovsky. There are 60 pre-orders for these helicopters. It's just a matter of desire if we want to start mass production. And anyway, most of these elements will have to be produced if there is a finished product and demand for it. This is not the main focus, and it's not like, oh, airships and helicopters and quadcopters. No, it's more of an airship project. But within the framework of a large airship, for example, our company will still face the need to attach quadcopters to the airship as micro-drones, like large delivery drones, and other similar devices. And propeller-driven helicopter groups will be used, and it's good that we already have them already developed. But if it can be profitable by producing them, why not?